she's not going to make it. Just right there and then. We didn't have time to prepare for anything. And so I was stunned, and I was trying to comprehend everything he was telling me. And I said, what? And he said, she's not going to make it. They had found a tumor behind her in her brain. And he said, she's not going to make it. And so I called the family. And after I processed all this a little bit, and I was crying, I said, Lord, I said, how can this happen? And so I called my family, and I told them, I said, you know, that she's in a hospital. She's not going to have a lot of time. So come see her and say your goodbyes. And that was the hardest thing I had to do. And I told my boys, and they were trying to comprehend this too. And so I got in the elevator and I was crying. I said, God, why are you allowing this? And I had called pastor and everybody, and they were all fasting and everything. It just happened so quick. And to know just right there and then that that's it. And so I said, God, I said, these things don't happen to us. You know, we're Christians. Things don't happen to us. And all I could hear him say, I said, my church is praying back home. And I heard him so clear, and he said, do you want your plans or my plans? And I was stunned. I said, your plans? He said, which one do you want? And I was still in the elevator, crying and crying. And I finally said, okay, all right. Okay. You say you're going to take her, that's fine. And I said, okay, if you give me 4 things, I said, if you give me a complete peace of my whole family, you know. And I said, and the second thing is the people come and make things right, because some things wasn't right with her and her dad. And I said, I want things to be right. And so I said, the third thing, I said, I want restoration in all this. And so, you know, and I'm still negotiating with God, you know, I think he's going to change his mind. And the fourth thing is, if you're going to take her, I want to be there. I brought her into this world, and I want to be here when she leaves. You know, she's supposed to raise her children and you know, grow up to, you know, finally get married with someone, well, you know, and just be happy the rest of our lives. But we're not exempt from any of this. We're part of the world, and all these things happen to us, you know. And so I was trying to absorb this, and because I felt like I've been hit with a freight train. And I was just crying and crying. And I said, Lord, I said, forgive me. I said, but I can't believe this is happening. And I said, Lord, I want to take her back home. My plans, remember, my plan. I want to take her back home, bury her at home. And this guy comes in and he says, hey, we have a place for her. And I'm stunned, like, what? And he said, we have a place for her. He said, normally we're full. He said, but we got one opening for her. And it was like a hospice. And he said, you don't have to pay anything. And I was already overwhelmed, and more added to that. And I said, okay. He said, you can stay there. You can eat there, cook, do your laundry, you know. And so I said, okay. And then, so they took her, and they had taken her off all the tubes and stuff. And I know she would not like to have lived like that. But it was a decision that I had to make. And I didn't have anybody help me with that decision. So I only had God. And I said, okay. That was the hardest decision I've had to make in my life. And, you know, sometimes we feel alone, but we have to remember God is with us. And I had to remember, I said, God, forgive me. I said, but, you know, help me to trust you, because I don't know how to trust right now. And everybody came, and they were saying their goodbyes, and her and Dad there was a restoration. And this was one of the things I had to ask. to restore. And people made things right, and my children were there, and everybody that I knew. We even had people from the church that came and prayed over her and everything, and that support meant so much to me. I needed it that time, and God brought support. He brought support, people that love you, people that pray for you, and so anyway, and so then that Sunday, he said, this is the day. I said, okay. And then when we were having the funeral, there was such peace that, that scripture says, the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. And I was thinking, we think we know what the scripture means, but until you live it, you don't really know what it means. And I realized what it meant. It meant through anything, dramatic, tragedy, His peace surpasses all understanding. It's a peace that we can't comprehend. It's not earthly. It's a supernatural peace. And after the funeral, I remember people see me in the grocery store and they come up, they start crying. And I'd look at them like, why are they crying? And they say, well, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I'd remember. And I said, oh, yes. And so I asked the Lord, I said, is there something wrong with me? I said, I have such a peace that I don't understand. I should be crying. I should be screaming or whatever, and it's okay to do those things. And because I did it, And so I said, Lord, what's wrong with me? And He gave me that scripture again. He says, that's that peace that you can't do it. It's Him. If you have something in your heart that you can't get rid of, and that's where you're going to have to really learn to trust who God is and knowing that He really cares for you. There were some things that I had in my heart, and I had to ask Him, how do I do this? I've forgotten. I've held it in my heart so long, I forgot how to do it. And I said, Lord, teach me how to release these things to you, because they could really do me harm. And His word says that He would do no harm to you. And so I know that all things will work out for the better, no matter what it looks like, no matter what it sounds like, the bad news, it doesn't matter. You say, God, your plans, whatever your plans are, I want it. And because my plans will always fail, always. And so now I don't have any plans for anything. People ask me, do you have plans? No, just God's plans. That's all I have. And so I give everything to God. He has proved to me that He has brought me through so many things. How can I deny Him? And His presence is so fulfilling. How can I deny that? You can't.